otherwise.
So this is neat. We're going to have our first ever guest this week. It's someone I've known for a really long time. It's Amanda. She's awesome. And we're going to talk about something really cool. Specifically her job. Amanda is a librarian. Which, a lot of us have a connotation in our head. Librarians are just no fun Nick shush machines. Couldn't be further from the truth. When I was a kid, behind these doors, it's my elementary school, home in Connecticut, whatever's. Behind this door used to be Kendall Elementary School Library. Librarian, I think, was named Mrs. Cloud. I think she was about 100 years old when I was here. My favorite book in this library was the one that taught you how to draw a cartoon character step by step. I was terrible at it. Mrs. Cloud would have us sit and watch VHS cassettes of LeVar Burton in Reading Rainbow, greatest TV show ever. And this is like the library was the fun spot. You get older, you bash the library, get older again. Kind of realize the library is one of the best spots out there because you don't have to do anything to be there. You don't have to pay for anything. You have to have a reason for existing beyond, I want to go to the library today. And then it's filled with books, and books are just little bundles of empathy. If you read a book, you have to put yourself into someone else's space, someone else's sphere. You have to take your imagination and figure it out. And that's what empathy is. So with Amanda, we're going to sit, we're going to talk about kindness, we're going to talk about empathy, we're going to talk about all the cool shit she gets to do as a librarian. And we're just going to have a really nice conversation. Memo can't be in it. He technically was in it, and he had to do some editing, hero worshipping stuff, where he saved the day because I somehow recorded myself 3 times. So this is a little bit late getting out. Humongous shout out to Amanda for being a wonderful, wonderful conversation, who was funny, bright, everything that you could ever ask for, and someone we'll hopefully speak to again. And it's coming up, and I wish you all a Merry Christmas, and I will talk to you soon. Bye from my elementary school library.
Hello.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. Get to come and spend some time with some very old friends and associates.
Yeah, Kyle was super stoked to hear that I was doing this. He's in bed already, though. He has work tomorrow. I asked him if he wanted to stay up and say hi, but he's an old
I was
man.
going to say he would be more than happy to have the extra special guest on.
He's already in bed, though, so.
There can be a next time if you have enough fun. We're okay with it.
For sure.
Welcome to the show. We are usually news, notes, slander, and otherwise, but we're taking a break from slandering this week. Everything seems kind of crappy, so we're going to have some people on like yourself to sit and chat for a little bit and go ahead and tell me about you.
All right. Well, my name's Amanda. I am the head librarian at Danbury Library in Danbury, Connecticut. I build with Kyle, my husband, and our 2 kids. My son is 16 and my daughter's 14. I've been a librarian for just about 10 years, a little over 10 years now.
Was Danbury your first library?
Yeah, it was. I hired there part-time out of library school in 2013. I worked there about a year. And then I moved to West Haven, where I head up their reference department for about a year. And then I got hired back at Danbury full-time as their digital services librarian. And then last September, I got promoted to head librarian. So
that is awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you. Library, though, for the city that it served, it's quite small. Are the only library in Danbury. We don't have any branches. Whereas all other cities of our size would have at least, a couple branches. So like Norwalk has a couple branches. New Haven has a ton of branches.
Well, Norwalk has like 2 in row 8 in library, which is the fancy people library.
And Norwalk is actually the library that we do our most like direct comparisons with. just because we serve a similar size city with a similar demographic. So we're
That's what, about
looking
90?
to, yeah, about eight. I think we have about like 80,000
Okay.
people in Danbury. Going to like compare ourselves with another library as far as the services that we provide or the programs that we put on, or our collections or anything like that. Norwalk is the one that we usually look at.
One of the things that I really want to talk to you about, which had me really interested for librarians, and kind of how librarians are one of the very few things in this world right now where there's assistance given. And there's a great quote about libraries about how it's like the one place you can go where
You're not
there's
expected
no
to buy
expectation,
anything. Yeah.
not to hear a sales pitch or anything else, but you still get like genuine help.
Right.
Is that something that you went into the job expecting to be such a focus, or were you more looking?
No, I can tell you that without even thinking about it. Absolutely not. No. In fact, it was a surprise to me the level of customer service that was required in my day-to-day job duties.
Had you worked in the customer service field before that?
I mean, I worked at Stop and Shop when I was in high school, but beyond that, no. Like out of I worked at Scholastic. I did quality assurance, so there was no customer facing like.
Wait, you mean like the book fair people? Like
the book fair people? I didn't work in their book fair division. I did for their online reference. So
sounds like being the accountant for Willy Wonka. That sounds like the most fun place. But just like the and take
was
no
dreadfully
offense.
dull. I started. I know
you're surrounded by the posters of Lamborghinis and everything's just Excel sheets and Post-it notes.
It was their Grolier like encyclopedia on CD-ROM when I first started there, and then it moved on to being all like internet based by the time I left. But I didn't do any interfacing with customers in that position.
So you really got dunked into the old dunk tank very quickly, huh? In the library setting.
Yeah, so in grad school there was very little in the way of like any sort of curriculum centered around customer service. I mean, I did one class about library administration, which touched on a little bit of like balancing customer relations, I suppose, but everything else was very technical. I will say, as a bit of an aside, the program that I did at Southern lost its accreditation while I was there.
Really?
Which didn't surprise me when it happened because it wasn't a very good program. They've censored. They've censored it
guys. Guys, we made up our own system. You have learned nothing.
It was just like here. I don't know. Looking back on it now, having worked as a librarian for 10 years, like I really didn't learn anything in that program that was of any use, except for maybe a little bit in that administration class. So everything else was just like, this is a mouse. Like I kid you not. Like I had like a class that was, and this is grad school. It's grad school. It was crazy.
I remember sitting in a classroom at a job once at like one of those big training seminars, and there being an entire thing, and you couldn't click through it. You had to sit there and be talked to like a child of like, this is a mouse, this is a keyboard.
When I started at Danbury, when I finally got that job, because I interviewed at quite a few different places, there was a part of me that was like, man, I've never worked in a library. You know, I wasn't one of those kids who like volunteered. I went to the library all the time as a kid, of course, but like I never worked in a library. And I
have a trivia question for you. If you were a library kid, what was the pet on the second floor of the Norwalk Public Library?
I don't remember.
I was a gerbil.
Oh, I don't remember.
It was a gerbil. You could. I was
they have a pretty dope aquarium there now.
Dude, really?
Yeah.
We got a stink gerbil in a thing of pencil shavings, and I was a lonely kid. And I was like,
they have a really beautiful aquarium up there now. But I remember thinking to myself, like, as I'm interviewing for jobs and not really getting it because I didn't have any experience. I just had my degree. When I finally got the job at Danbury, I was thrilled, but I was also terrified because I was like, wait a minute, like, did I just spend 2 years of my life? Like, what if I just spent 2 years of my life getting this degree and taking out a shit ton of loans to do this?
Yeah.
And what if I like get into this job and I go, I've made a terrible mistake? But thankfully, that was not the case. As I'd said, I'd worked at Scholastic since I graduated college, because as a temp through college, and then I graduated with no real plan. I had a Spanish major in undergrad, which I had no plan for either. I chose my major because I was good at it and but I had no real plan for what I wanted to do with it. I didn't want to be a teacher.
Using your major?
I knew that. Huh?
C. Will you be using your major? C.
Sure. I mean, I use it now.
That's it right there.
To some degree, but yeah, I really just chose it because I was like, oh, this is fine. This will be good. Like, don't do that. Like, don't tell your kids, like, if you don't have a plan when you go to college, like, just don't even bother. Like I've told my kids this, like, really think about it. Don't just
you have a plan now. I super don't. Like, I'm putting a lot of eggs in this basket and I don't know how it's working out so far because he won't let me see the numbers.
So I was, creeping up on 10 years at Scholastic, and those last few years, it was just, I was so bored because I'd been doing it for 10 years and I started doing it as a college kid, high school kid with no experience.
Really?
It never really, shifted to anything terribly difficult. It was just testing. It's just software testing. Like, it's not hard. And sure, some of the stuff that I got to do was kind of cool, but I knew that I couldn't do it forever. I knew I had to figure something else out. And I had a friend who had gotten her master's in library science from Roger Williams during this time. And that kind of put it on my radar as a thing that I could do, as an option I could pursue. So I started looking into it, and I saw that Southern had a fully online program available because I had 2 little kids at the time. So I was like, all right, well, I can do this. I applied, I got in, filed for divorce, and then I started the program.
Nice.
Those were unrelated, but
usually when people say, then I started the program after I got divorced, it is such a different sentence in context.
Yeah,
that is, yours is the most A+ one I've ever heard by far.
It was a bunch of things that were happening simultaneously, but just coincidentally, I think I did start the program and then I filed for divorce, but it ended up being a great thing because I had something to focus on during this horrible time. And then it was all online so that I could still balance. I was still working.
Yeah.
Had 2 kids under the age of 3.
Oh, wow.
So I managed to hammer it out in 2 years. And I got to go back to my original point here is I walked into my first shift at Danbury. And again, I was only there part-time. So I was working 4 or 5 hour shifts or whatever. And it was all at the front desk. And I walked out of that first shift and I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do. But it was striking to me that everything that I had learned about cataloging and tech stuff or whatever, it didn't matter. It's all customer service. You're in there, you're helping people from the time you get there not so much now, oddly enough, just because I've kind of moved into some more of that techie.
Do you miss it?
Yeah, I do kind of wish I had more time on the desk.
No, do they still teach libraries? Are you going
to ask me about the Dewey Decimal System?
No. That would be so fucking, that would be so pedantic and boring that I would never, ever, fuck those hours of work. No. So my question actually is, are they still teaching library sciences the same way? Because right now, I have a library that's a block away from me. I absolutely love it.
You have that beautiful library with the books on the outside, right? Isn't that
That's the parking garage, believe it or not.
Oh,
that
really?
is actually, that's the view I'm looking at right now. That's the view outside of my house. But the library, I actually had to go in there yesterday to print something. I love our library. I go in there all the time. But libraries, are not the, I hate to say it this way, and if I'm being offensive, I super apologize, are not the quiet bastion of intellectualism that they were once.
No, not at all. They're community centers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So are they still teaching library sciences in a way that has that focus on cataloging, or are they broaching it more towards a customer service orientation with a skill set that,
it's very hard for me to answer because I did go through such a less than
Larry's College of Library
program.
Sciences.
So, and I don't really know. I mean, I haven't really spoken to anyone who is currently enrolled, so that's really hard for me to answer, but I wouldn't be surprised. And just based on like the literature, like, you know, you read any library magazines, it also wouldn't be surprising to me, like, that there's more of a focus on that sort of thing.
Shushing Monthly has an excellent article on Narcan use this month.
Yeah,
because you guys,
we have actually broached that topic with the city, but they won't let us. They won't let us get certified.
Really, I think I could be wrong, but I believe Kansas City does. Because our central library, they do haircuts there on weekends. Sometimes they'll have shower vans, they'll have hot food, all types of great services. And libraries do so much for the community, but at the same time get this really wonderful juxtaposition of being some mutt peddlers and indoctrinators and all these terrible things.
Yeah, that's the irony, isn't it?
It's the saddest thing ever that the people who are saying it are the same people who brought us to the library when we were kids in a lot of these situations.
Yeah.
But when you're getting into this, and you kind of had that experience, did you find that you're like, wow, I'm not going to get through this unless I have to like have a Grinch moment and grow my heart a little bit bigger and kind of figure out, how do I tackle this?
No, I don't. I mean, maybe my heart was just already big. Like, it never really struck me as difficult. Like, I always kind of found it charming. Like, I mean, I've had my difficulties. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I've been stalked. Like, I've had men leave me sexually explicit letters. Like, it's not all, you know, sunshine and roses, but
yeah,
generally, like, I find the people that I interact with interesting and charming, and it's really eye-opening because you just, yeah, I mean, like, I interact with a lot of people, a lot of unhoused people, and they really kind of break the mold. Like, if you're going to watch like any sort of pop culture, everybody's made out to be just foul and awful, and that's just not the case. Like, these people are just struggling, and a lot of them are brilliant, and they're just having like the worst possible time of their lives. So it was always kind of, not always, I mean, I can't say always, but it was pretty easy for me to move into this position. And, you know, even in realizing that it was customer based, like, it's easy for me. I'm good at it. I like it. Okay.
They were mean.
I've been shushed. I will tell you, I've been shushed myself more than I've done shushing. Like, tell me to shut up before, like, I like tell them to shut. That just speaks to like what libraries are like now.
Rage on, my book people. Rage on, my book people. You know, for
My favorite thing. So it's like a
Yeah, you
maker
can go
lab.
like a rent a bandsaw.
Yeah.
That's a really, can I just say real quick, that's a really great way to commit crime, is to go get your implements of crime from the library. Like, no one's going to see it coming. Nobody. You go to the library, you get your chainsaws, your everything, you go rob the bank and you return it and they get filed back in the catalog until someone's like, you know what? I want to build a birdhouse.
Yeah, but we won't give it out though.
Yeah, but no one's going to think
Yeah.
of the library. No one's going to be like, where should we look for that criminal element? They're going to go to the library.
I will say the Danbury Library has a recording studio, and
Do you really?
we have an audio recording studio and a video recording studio, and it's free for anyone who has a Connecticut library card. And then we also have a makerspace, so people can use. We have a sewing machine, we have a 3D printer. Here's the thing.
That's
we're going to
fantastic.
kind of step into like a larger problem for libraries. So it's that generally speaking, libraries are woefully underfunded. So we don't really have the means to do any sort of true promotion, like true paid like advertising. Every so often we might have like a little extra money. My director might find a little extra money. So we might do like a one-off. Like there was one summer we had enough money to put up a billboard for summer reading, but that sort of thing is few and far between. We try and use social media, but we don't pay for it. So we have very little reach because it just gets lost. Like if you're not paying for shit on social media, nobody's seeing it. So and we just don't have the money. So
primary funding coming through grant money right now, or
no, we're a city department. We depend on the city to fund our budget, and we haven't had a budget increase in 10 years.
It's because we have a lot of really high-end priorities in this country that are very well placed for what comes first. And obviously children's literacy is number one. I voted for a proposition to legalize sports betting to fund education. So that way those same kids later on can get addicted to sports betting. And it's just going to be this giant, beautiful cycle of education, education and rehab. That's all it is for like the next couple decades.
We only had one prop on our ballot, and I missed it. I didn't see it on my ballot, and I forgot. I know I felt so bad, but it passed. So I didn't feel too bad because it did pass. I wanted it to pass. It was just to expand access to absentee ballots, because in Connecticut there's like a very short list that you can only request an absentee ballot if like you're sick or you're not going to be here or whatever. So they made it so now you can request one just because you want to.
It's so weird that people have this idea of like, no, voting has to be arduous. If it's raining, your vote counts more. If it's cold, it counts twice. Like it's
for 3 hours.
Yeah, if it's 3 hours, your vote counts 4 times. It's like playing one of those like bonus Keno games. And I had someone say to me recently, they're like, well, if I vote early, how do I know? And I was like, for fuck's sake. All right, I'm going to send you a quote. Are you ready?
Sure.
It's going to be in the chat box.
Okay. Oh, yeah, I've heard that before. I thought you were going to send me the doors and windows quote, or the windows and mirrors quote.
Which one's the windows and mirrors quote?
It's the one that books are windows or mirrors, and if the light is right, sometimes a window becomes a mirror.
Ooh, I've never read that, but I love that. Who said that?
I wish I could remember. If you look it up, it'll come up. I forget exactly what her name was, but...
Was it Ursula K. Le Guin?
I don't think so.
It feels very her for some reason. I don't know why.
But it's not a terribly, difficult metaphor to understand.
No, not at all.
Very apt. So,
Amanda, go ahead and read that out loud. And who wrote it for me?
Hello, babies. Welcome to Earth. It's hot in the summer and cold in the winter. For now, anyway. It's round and wet and crowded. At the outside, babies, you've got about 100 years here. There's only one rule that I know of, babies. God damn it. You've got to be kind. Kurt Vonnegut.
So with library sciences, I kind of, going into that idea of, for me, one of the reasons why I thought of you so quickly was if you love books, and to be a librarian, you have to love books, or you just have a really specific case of OCD. And for me, loving books always says that this is a person who has empathy, because reading forces you to be in someone else's shoes. And empathy for me is something that translates into kindness. There are those people who are only reading, Patriot Games style books, and they're the ones who might think that they're going to steal a submarine. But, if you're reading constantly in various authors, like I'm assuming a librarian would, kind of what's your idea on that?
So I was trying to think about this in advance of this conversation and what I was going to say about it. And there's a reason why states that are generally like more highly educated tend to vote Democrat. And it's not some trite explanation of like the smarter you are, the more you're likely to be a Democrat. I don't think that's the case. I think it's more that the more.
But that's the way we all like to really make it seem.
Well, yeah, of course. But I think it's more that education means a broadening of your horizons, right? A broadening of your sphere. You are more likely to have been influenced by people who did not come from the same town that you came from, and therefore are more likely to view government as taking care of all of the people, because we are all a community, right? We all are living together and just trying to get through this 100 years or so, right? And I think that's someone who reads contract. A lot. Like, it's not just, you don't have to go to college to have this kind of perspective. If you're someone who just has a desire to broaden your perspectives through reading, like, you can also reach those conclusions. You can also see that we're all on this tiny ball, on Earth together, and we just have different perspectives. Like, we just come from different places, but we're all here just trying to get through it.
One of the lessons I learned from when I was younger, especially when it pertains to reading, and it's something that I see young people do, especially young men, which is this idea of, if I don't like a book, and it was really prevalent in those times when books like Twilight were really popular, or Harry Potter, where of just crapping on the idea of someone's passion and what brings them joy reading is one of the most just utterly toxic ideas. That, even if you love reading, don't crap on another book, because that book might bring someone else joy. And it's one of those lessons I really had to learn as a young person growing into adulthood, of like, if a book is bringing someone joy, let it. Don't be a jerk. Like, this should be a back and forth, because books have so much wonder to give us. Yeah. It's just really kind of miserable.
That's true.
It's the people in line at the coffee shop who are just tapping their foot and going like this. They're not happy. It's a fucking miserable existence. And it's something that I don't want us to all fall back into, because it feels like that's what those 4 years were. And I think we need to kind of slam the brakes on and figure out what kind of some of those channels, solutions, and otherwise can be, because I don't have any other fucking ideas. I'm ideaed out. This is it. I guess, so one of my questions would be to Amanda is, when we talk about kindness now, are we talking about kindness in a way, not just a simple act, but that kindness should just be easy? That's like, hold the door for you, you're welcome, bing, as opposed to, hey, maybe you should stop being a bully, because it feels like the things where we should be saying stop being a bully in a certain way have been co-opted into, hey, that's not kind if you tell a bully that he's being a bully. So
well,
you
that's that you're kind of touching on, like, the paradox of tolerance, right? Like,
on how that is absolutely.
So no, I mean, you can be really mean and kind.
Oh, I'm one of the biggest assholes on the planet, and I also think I'm a really nice person. It's kind of weird. I have a high opinion of myself.
It's really hard right now because we want to promote kindness. Like we want our government to support all people and do its best for everyone. And in the
Everyone
face of
wants
that not
dignity, but only about
happening,
half people want
like
it. What's that?
I said, in the face of that not happening, like
Yeah.
aggressively not happening, I don't think that it's at all productive to just be like, well, let's just be nice to everybody.
No,
Like, let's just be nice. If we're just nice,
I completely
like
agree
it's all
with that.
it's all gonna work out. And that's just.
But I also feel like we have to shift our ideas of what smart and vicious and kind of this like radical idea of like no, like we're going to have uncomfortable conversations if things happen. If you say things in public that are horrible, we have to have a conversation now. One of my like pet little conspiracy theories in the world is that a lot of the bullshit that we have to listen to, it's not people sitting at home and reading it online and coming up with these terrible Breitbart inspired ideas and these terrible InfoWars style ideas. It's a group of guys who have known each other for like 40 years who meet in the diner on Sunday morning, and the guy at the end of the table says something that's slightly racist, but since Joe at the other end, whose son may be dating someone of color, doesn't want to say anything to her friend Dan. So Dan is going to be a little bit more empowered. And then Dan says something that's completely fucking insane, like, I heard the deep state was behind the hurricanes. And nobody wants to still correct Dan because nobody wants to be impolite. Nobody doesn't want to be unkind.
It's funny that you should use that as the example because Kyle and I just were having this conversation. So Kyle works for a highway department. So he's surrounded by a bunch of blue collar guys.
Yeah.
Those guys that are, infuriatingly voting staunchly Republican when they're relying on their union.
I know that's fantastic, voting against your own interest.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Like, you know what? I really think the butcher has the best interest of the cows in his heart.
Or the axe in the forest. So
yeah,
we're having this whole conversation because it's really hard for him to be around that all day, every day. And he was saying how like there's a couple of guys. There's one guy in particular who told him, like in confidence, that he had voted for Kamala.
Yeah.
But like told everybody else that he voted for Trump because he like didn't want to hear it. Meanwhile, he's got like a kid who is in the LGBTQ community. Like, I think his daughter is married. And like on the one hand, I
have a spine, man.
Like I am, but on the one hand, like I get it, right? These guys are assholes. Like I can't imagine. Like I'm very lucky in that I work in a space where I'm working with people who
shared value system.
Yeah, share my values. I can't imagine what it must be like to go to work every day and be surrounded by people who are doggedly like against everything that I believe and loud about it, loud and stupid, right? And like,
what's his kind of go-to technique for combating it?
He gets mad.
Just head down and
like he gets mad, but that's exhausting, right? Like, so I get like why the friend was just like, sure, yeah, and like on the one hand, I get it. On the other hand, though, like you can't affect change that way. But like, it's a really tough thing to talk about. Like I get it, but man, it's those moments that's really going to push the needle, right? It's those people that do step up and say, this is how I believe, and like I don't want to hear it anymore. But that's so hard.
Oh, it's incredible, especially when you are against a large group of people who are we're all equally as passionate. And I think where the difference comes in is that where the passion splits off for me is the end goal of showing kindness is to give people dignity. Dignity is where it's at. Everybody wants dignity. Nobody wants to give dignity. And, my idea is a society where we should strive to give all dignity. That's pretty much it. Like, it's not that hard of a concept. And I feel really strongly like the other side of the equation is saying, no, it's like maybe like 2/3-ish of us should get dignity, and everyone else we can just float off into the ocean. They don't matter.
I don't think that's even like a part of the thought process, right? I think that's the fundamental difference here is that like, we're trying to make choices. We're trying to vote in people whose main goal is to assure the dignity of others, right? And whereas this on the other side is just it's just self-focused. I don't think they're even thinking in those terms at all. It's just what's best to benefit me, and if to benefit me, these people have to suffer, or these people have to be deported, or these people have to have their rights taken away, then fine. I'm fine with that, because as long as I'm okay, as long as, I have a slightly more in my paycheck because I got a tiny tax cut, then fuck everybody else. Like, there was a point like right after, the day after the election, the morning after the election, I went to work, and like Kyle texted to check on me because I was distraught. And he said something, an attempt, I know, just to try and make me feel better. He was like, don't worry, like, we'll get through this. We'll be okay. And I'm like, this is not me. I'm not crying for me. I know we'll be okay. Like, we're middle-aged, middle-class white people. Like, we're going to be fine.
We don't have a lot of worries in this situation.
This is not about me. Like, I'm upset for all of the people who are going to be affected. Like, that's what makes me sad. That's what terrifies me, because that's not the kind of country that I want to live in. That's not the kind of country that I want my kids to live in. Like, what was that?
I want to live in a world beyond the shadows and the walls.
So I think one of my most radical acts of kindness is raising my kids to be kind, raising my kids to be accepting and staunch Democrats.
In what ways, when you're kind of interacting with them in just general daily kind of go abouts? Because I was with my own mom recently, and her profanity while driving is quite spectacular for such a lovely woman. Kind of what kind of challenges is for a mom right now? Because there's a lot of shit out there, especially towards teenagers. How do you find yourself combating that aspect of it?
Honesty.
Really?
Yeah. Like my kids are fully aware of all of my bad choices. Maybe not all of my bad choices, but a lot of my bad choices. Kyle's very open and honest with them about his struggles with his mental health and, addiction through the years. They're fully aware of like their family history of addiction and mental health. So I just think that like having open and honest conversations with them is the best possible way to like prepare them for the things to come. Not
the random surprises our parents left for us of like, hey, by the way, there's some bipolarism in the family. You might have a scoosh.
Yeah, exactly. So
do you find them to be kind of kids who, because of the way that you have instilled in them kind of those values, to be this, to like push those things forward? Like, does that give you just the most ultimate joy?
Oh God, yeah. There was so we live in Fairfield, and there are a lot of unhoused people here, and especially on like the side of town where we live, it's like this handful of guys, like 3 or 4 guys that are always set up begging for money at the highway exit, And like I still very rarely have cash. That if I do have like a couple bucks, it's because I happen to have it like as a leftover, right? So if I've got like a couple bucks, like I'm gonna give the guy cash. It's like, what am I gonna do with this money? It's just gonna like sit here. Not all the time, because I like I said, I very rarely do have cash. But if I've got it, I'm gonna give it to him. There was one time, I think it was maybe like a couple years ago, where my daughter decided that she was going to put together, this was entirely of her own volition. She put together like a bag of like a lunch to like give to one of the guys. So she asked if we could go like give it to him, and I forget what was in it, like maybe like an apple and like a sandwich or something. And I was just so like beside myself, just so proud. And then we
like,
give
never leave this moment ever.
the guy the bag. This is just, I don't know. I just thought this hilarious. Give the guy the bag, and he opens it up. He takes out the apple, and he's like, "Oh, I don't have any teeth. I can't eat." And I was like, okay." And he like hands the bag back. He's like, "Thanks, though." It's like, all right.
Give it to a friend.
They're both incredibly thoughtful, empathetic, caring kids. Like, I've heard it from their teachers from the time they were little. And it really does, like, I cannot put into words what it feels like to hear that my kids are caring and kind and accepting and empathetic when they're not with me, when
That's
they're
fantastic.
away from me, and they make those choices on their own. It's the best possible feeling.
Yeah, but here's the thing. But we need to break that chain of ideas to stop those silly fucking ideas, dude.
Yeah.
We need to have
That's
the idea
of like
that kindness, but kindness for kindness' sake.
Yeah.
That has the humanist idea of doing a good deed or not, with no idea of reward or punishment in the afterlife, of just saying, I'm going to hand this person an apple because they're a person.
And if he doesn't want it, then fine. I think
if he wants to huck it into traffic, I don't care.
You're also kind of like treading a little bit on, that mentality that people have, like, well, I'm not going to give this guy money because I don't know what he's going to spend it on. It's like, well, the better option is to give him money, because if you're buying him food, you're making the assumption that you know what he likes. Whereas like truthfully, like what, and I just saw a whole thing about this for the giving trees, for like when you go to like in the mall and they have like the tree, and like you take the ornament and you have to like buy a thing and you give it back and it goes to the kid. There's
no, I'm just kidding, sorry.
Like they have those giving trees, right? And there's like this problem that these organizations are having where like people, they're like are expecting a level of gratitude when they like are buying crappy gifts because they're like, well,
you mean the white saviors,
right? Well, yeah. So I think that we do have to sort of detach ourselves from this idea of like that someone should just be grateful because I'm going out of my way to be kind and to give you this thing, whether it's food or it's a gift or whatever. When that person still like they have their own. They're still a person. They have their own humanity. They have what they like, what they don't like. Like maybe the dude just doesn't like apples, right? Maybe the guy didn't like Lunchables, like whatever. Like, but I think people have a tendency to forget that because they kind of get lost in this self-important, like, well,
we need to start having a conversation that kindness needs to be about us inconveniencing ourselves in order to achieve what we all kind of want out of society. Not something that is passively comes at us, but like, oh, look, that person just fell down. How do we help them? How do we make this work that we can stop everyone from falling down as much as possible? Because it seems like we're pushing everyone over a lot right now. And like everyone's like on their knees behind them being like, ha ha ha. And that's half society. It's something that I look at and just makes me nervous. But, I do look at my local library, as cheesy as it sounds, down the street every day. And they yesterday print some stuff off because my printer at home pooped the bed. And you see that help in society is still there. How do we keep on pushing that forward? That's my big question. And I have beyond no answer.
Do you guys ever listen to Dax Shepard's podcast?
My girlfriend does a lot. And I happen to like
I
him
haven't
and Kristen
listened
Bell
to
quite a
it
bit.
in a really long time, but I think it was Wife, where they were talking about kindness and doing good things. And there was this piece of their conversation that really resonated with me because it really, basically they said the reason they do good things and the reason that they're kind and they're nice to people is entirely selfish. It's because it makes them feel good. It has nothing to do with the other person. It has nothing to do with like this sort of altruistic, I'm doing this because I know that it will help this person. It's just because doing that good deed makes you feel good.
Oh,
And
120%.
and like when I heard that, it made me feel better about feeling like doing things because like I'm going to do this because I know that I feel like a really good person when I do it. Like it's okay.
I feel like the bee's knees when I'm like, it's hot out. I'm gonna go hand out some bottled water to the unhoused people in my neighborhood. Like, oh, there's a guy eating out of the dumpster. Here's some oranges that happen to be in my bag.
I mean, I do think
it's the
there's a
best
line
feeling.
that gets crossed, especially in the age of social media, where I do think that there are people out there that like some of these like do-gooder social media accounts, like give me
Look at me.
a little
I'm
bit of
cleaning
a
up the beach.
squicky feeling where I'm like, did you have to, you know, it's a little gross. But I actually got into a little bit of a discussion with my son about this because Mr. Beast is like one of those massive social media platforms that he gives out
Oh,
a
yeah.
lot of money and all this sorts of stuff. And Lucas had showed me it was another creator who was doing something where he had like given someone money and, you know, whatever. And the person didn't realize that they were being recorded. And I mean, clearly, like they must get some sort of permission after the fact, I would assume. But in any case, I said something to the effect of like, oh, I don't know if I like that. Like, it just feels a little exploitive. And Lucas is like, Mom, he's like, that's how they make the money, though. It's like, that's how they make the money so that they can give more money. He's like, Mr. Beast gives out millions of dollars because his videos of him giving out that money get so many views. And I was like, okay, God damn it.
I can't argue with the system.
But like he has a point though.
Well, I mean, we've all had those moments where you're driving down the highway. I will openly admit, like, I have road rage, and you're driving, and you get angry and you yell, and like you just feel fucking dirty. Like you get home and your day's a little bit off now, and you're kind of looking at your spouse or loved one like, sorry. But,
Yeah, it really
that,
does. It just does feel better when you're just like, okay.
It feels so much better.
Yeah.
And I was walking my dog. I love walking my dog around my neighborhood because it provides a lot of really great opportunities to interact with people. Oh, I can be so creepy because I'm so tall. And there's certain areas in my neighborhood that are like oddly not well lit. So I'm like, good evening. Are you going to the library this evening? Mind if I creep up on you with my little dog? I'm like, sir, you smell like marijuana. Please go away. But no, it's something I really truly love, and that it's something I feel like we should all start trying to find our ways to do, to say, man, fucking our world is not as shitty as it seems. It can be. It is if you look that way, but we can do better and we can be kinder. And there's a different thing that I want to try to figure out how we bring that to the world. And Amanda, you've kind of hit so many of those great notes about your experiences and even Kyle's experiences too, because that's wild in itself that it's him against basically an entire group of guys. How do you find yourself making yourself feel better, especially in like the last couple of days? What's been your kind of like go-to, we can't sit around smoking opium?
I posted about having finished that book, that TJ Klune
Which one
book,
was it?
Somewhere Beyond the Sea. It's the
Did it make
sequel to The House in the Cerulean Sea.
How many times did you cry? Because I will openly admit, it is wonderful and beautiful in every way, and I want TJ Klune to be my friend.
You read the second one? You read Somewhere?
Yeah.
Oh,
I loved it.
yeah. It's so lovely.
So
it got me choked up a couple of times. I think he's a wonderful writer. I'm actually reading one of his early novels right now. It's on.
Have you seen those?
No.
Have you seen the toys?
No.
They have toys. There's Chauncey toys.
Oh
There's
my
Chauncey
God.
stuffed animals. They are the cutest fucking things on the planet. They're like little plush toys.
Oh my gosh.
And then
that's so cute.
there's stickers of all the kids. And I was like, I'm an adult. I have $25. It's adorable because here's the thing. If you cannot read this book or the two books in all honesty and not get hit by the feels again and again and again in the most wonderful way, and like it's one of those books that like really should be required reading for young people.
Lucas was had to read The House in the Cerulean Sea. I think it was his freshman year. They added it to the curriculum. Yeah.
Oh, I had read The Secret Lives of Puppets.
I read that one too. The early book that I'm reading right now it's called Into the River I Drown.
Ooh, I haven't seen that one. I've seen like River Song and Wolf Song.
There's 4 of those in that series.
Into the River I Drown. What's it about?
Into this river I drown. Yeah, into this. It's about a young gay boy who has lost his father. His father drowned. I've only just started it, but it appears to be there. He have some sort of magical something is happening, or maybe his dad is like coming to visit him. But it's very early in the book, so I'm not sure.
I love how he doesn't. I hate when books of this sort get bogged down in this over description of how their universes work, where it's not universe building, it's like universe pedanticry. I like to make up words, and I find that what TJ Klune does really well of just kind of say, here's the parameters of the world that we're working with, accept them or don't. Yeah. I don't care. This is the story that we're telling. And I find it such a unique little kind of technique to just also really slide in some really interesting concepts too into his writing.
Yeah. Did you read Under the Whispering Door?
I have not.
That one made me cry.
Damn it.
That one deals with like the afterlife.
Oh, that's definitely going to make me cry.
It's very, very good. If you also want another writer to just make you cry, but in the best possible way, Frederick Backman is fantastic for that.
A man called
Uva.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, yep. So that's Beartown. I have a copy of Beartown that I got on a suggestion a while back, and I just finished the 3rd book in the Poppy Wars, which was really good. But Beartown will actually now be my next book.
Beartown is one of a trilogy. Beartown is the first.
Fuck me. Is it really?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
God damn it. I'm so tired of fucking trilogies and duologies. I just want to read a goddamn book and have it be a goddamn book. Because you know what? The books that I want to be trilogies, they're not going to write any fucking more. Like, I hope he writes another Carillion Sea book, because I really want to read a book where they're teenagers and like full on fighting the government.
I think there's going to be a 3rd one.
Oh, God,
I'm pretty sure there's going to be a 3rd one.
Did you read, Harlem Shuffle? And
I started it. I couldn't get into it. I've got to try again, I think.
So I had the same experience when I first tried to read it, and then tried again like a year or somewhat later.
Yeah.
The Colson Whitehead is a stiletto to the ribs of a writer, man.
I read Nickel Boys and I read Underground Railroad. So
very different books, in my opinion. No, I loved both of those, Underground Railroad and Harlem Shuffle. That's the other one.
Yeah.
But I want a 3rd one of that too.
I want to kind of go back to like the idea of reading as a means toward like radical kindness. In choosing books that in choosing books in order to like further this idea of acceptance and understanding, broader understanding, I can't stress enough that people should seek out own voices, books that are written in a perspective by a person who has lived that perspective, right? Like if you truly want to broaden your horizons, make sure that you're looking for writers. So for instance, TJ Klune writes as an asexual man, queer man, like he writes queer stories. Yeah. Like try and make sure that you're seeking out stories. I would prefer nonfiction. You're looking for memoirs, that sort of thing. But people like writing from their own perspectives, because it's truly like the best way to get that.
Absolutely.
To get that into your life.
Are there specific writers that you've had in your kind of time that you've gone, wow, that book kind of just threw me in a perspective that I didn't see coming?
N.K. Jemisin is one who like jumps out at me.
It's still my heart. I love you so much. Sorry.
She's tremendous. I mean, she writes
Yes.
science fiction, so like the characters are characters of color though. So like it is somewhat own voices, but
Well, there's the argument
just
to be made that
this
science fiction is just the back door for the social writing.
right.
Which books of hers have you read?
The City We Became, that duology.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever
That
gotten
one,
to the Broken Earth?
those books blew me away. Those books were unlike anything read before. I loved both of those so much. The first one especially, but like,
Oh, which was your favorite borough?
oh gosh, probably Queens.
Oh, I was gonna go Queens.
Oh God, I don't know, but yeah, those books absolutely blew me away because I didn't know. I think that was the first books that I had read by her at all.
Same here.
So I didn't really know much about her. And I think the cover I found intriguing. So I kind of just picked it up. That's one of the things about living in the library, working in the library is that like, I'll walk by a display and I'll go, oh, that looks good. Like, let me just grab that.
Sounds like my dream.
It's good and it's bad because what it also does is really remind me every single day that there's so many good books out there that I'm never going to read.
Yeah, but what a great and wonderful problem to have.
Yeah.
It's there was John Waters who said, if you go to someone's house and there's no books, don't fuck them. Yeah, exactly. You think about how sad life is, and I think there's a difference for me between people who don't read at all, and then people who are willfully like, no, reading isn't something that we need as a people's as a
librarian, I would be remiss if I did not make sure to include the fact that reading also includes audio. Audiobooks count as reading. It's scientifically proven to activate the same parts of your brain. So if you can only read books when you listen to them, that also counts as reading. So if you listen to a book, you have read a book. You don't have to play semantics and say, it is not cheating.
It's cheating. Bunch of cheaters.
It is 100% not. Listen, my daughter has ADHD. My husband has ADHD. Sitting down and reading a book is literally impossible for both of them without a lot of struggle. They can do it, but it takes a lot of effort and it's hard and it shouldn't be hard. Whereas Kyle can listen to a podcast while he's doing 15 other things. Now, I don't have that sort of audio. Like, if I'm listening, I have to actively listen. I have to literally focus and listen, or I don't get any of the information. So like, even if I'm driving home and if I'm listening to a podcast and my brain flits off to something else, like I have to rewind because I can't do two things at once. Whereas Kyle can be doing 15 things and he's got, his AirPods in and he's listening to a podcast. He absorbs all of it. It's incredible. My daughter, she's reading a book right now for school. Once I Was Puerto Rican, I think is what it's called, memoir. And I've been reading her chapter by chapter and she sits there and she listens to it because there's no audiobook available. But in the over the past years, what we'll do is that she has to read a book, we'll find it on Libby or Hoopla or something, and she'll listen while she reads along. Because for her to sit and focus and read, she just can't do it. And it doesn't and it's not fair for people. It makes me really sad that people have been raised. It's still very much this pervasive, erroneous idea that listening is not reading. You're still absorbing the information. So
you're getting the story, you're getting the joy of it. That's all there is to it.
Yeah.
And that's the really fun part of it.
Yeah.
I highly recommend the Broken Earth trilogy next time you're looking for it is.
I think I read the first one. I'm pretty sure I read the first one.
The first one, I had a little bit of a density to it because there's so much world building that shit to do. The third one in particular, destroyed me. It was one of those, I was sitting in a park reading and just kind of gently crying to myself.
Really?
I love her.
When I read A Man Called Uva, it was my first time reading Frederick Backman. And it was one of those things where A Man Called Uva was one of those books that was super duper popular at the library. And I tend to avoid those for a while. Like I'll wait until the clamor dies down and then I'll go and I'll read it later. So I picked it up and I read it sitting on my couch at the end, and I was literally sobbing, like racking sobs. And Kyle walked in that room and he looked at me and he's like, "Are you okay?" I was like, "Oh." And I was just sobbing. Then I watched the Swedish version, the movie.
Yeah.
The original movie. Same thing happened. Got to the end. I'm hysterical. He walks in and he was like, "What now?" Because this was only like 2 days later. He's like, "Now what?" And I was like, "I just finished the movie." He's like, "You knew it was going to happen." I'm like, "Yeah, but it
doesn't change it."
I have yet to watch the Tom Hanks version, though. I don't know that I want to.
Did you ever read All the Way Gone, the memoir about the child soldier?
No, but I did read When Breath Becomes Air, and that one will also make you cry.
Oh, I read All the Way Gone on a flight, and at the very end, it destroyed me emotionally. And I'm in the middle seat, and I'm a big 6'4" dude who's shaking with tears as two complete strangers are like trying as hard as they can to get away from me. Like,
When Breath Becomes Air was about the doctor that had cancer. He wrote the memoir like as he's dying of cancer. That one absolutely made me hysterically cry. And then Rob Delaney's book, A Heart That Works, talking about his son who died of brain cancer. Do you know who Rob Delaney is? He's a comedian.
From the Deadpool movies.
From what?
He's in the Deadpool movies, isn't he?
I think he is, actually. Yeah. He's in Catastrophe.
He's in the show with Vince Vaughn on one of the many streaming services.
Yeah. He'd had an Amazon show with Sharon Horgan called Catastrophe, which is really funny. Yeah. Some time ago, his 3-year-old son died of brain cancer. So he wrote a memoir about that period in his life, and it's astonishing. Like it's a very slim. Now I read it in just a few hours. It's unreal how he's able to be funny, because he's funny.
Yeah.
While also ripping your heart out of your chest.
That's why I love books, is that you get to say, "Hey, this is the most sad thing I've ever read."
Oh, A Little Life. Did you read A Little Life?
No. What's that?
It's Hanya Yanagihara. Yanagihara. That one's kind of a, you gotta dedicate some time. It's a hefty book, but that one will also rip your heart out and stomp on it, and you will thank it for it at the end.
Oh man, my birthday's coming up. It's gonna be so sad. But every year, my girlfriend. So I hate to tell you this, I love my library and I go there all the time, but I don't take books out.
You have to. That's what keeps libraries open.
Circulation
statistics, Rob, please.
But here's the problem. I read several books at a time, so it's like this constant rotating shit show of books for like 4 or 5 months at a time. Mm-hmm. And library books just get lost in this god-awful shuffle of shit and books. Actually, my library went fine free. But I support them in other ways. I go to all their events. I go to the art. I go to everything I can to the library.
Wow. They would also appreciate circulation.
I'll start take.
Do you use use Libby?
Yeah, I use Libby.
Oh, okay, that counts.
Okay, works. Nice. Yeah, I'm going to be honest with you though. I only signed up for my Libby account like 6 months ago because I didn't really know too much about it.
Well, I'm glad you know about it now.
Our librarians are dope, and they told me about it, and I love our librarians.
Good. I'm glad.
I go out and I play chess on the top and I read books. That's all I do. Well, are there any other books you can think of that you would want to recommend to anybody to kind of either crush your soul or make your soul sing?
The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue was a book I read a couple years ago, and I've recommended it I don't know how many times. Anybody I've ever recommended to is not disappointed. It's the story of a girl who you meet originally, I want to say in like the late 17th or 18th century. She's being forced into a marriage that she does not want, because she, at this point, is an old maid, but she's only like, 20. On the day of her marriage to a man that she does not want to marry, her parents have finally decided, like, we can't have you living at home anymore. You're going to marry this guy. She runs out into the woods and she prays for somebody to save her. And a demon answers her prayer. And he's like, listen, I'm going to make it so that you can have your life however you want, make you immortal. You can live your life however you want. But the caveat is that no one will ever remember you. He makes her immortal. But she lives a life where, like, it's not that they can't see her. It's not she's like some ghost, like she's alive. But the moment she is no longer in someone's line of vision, they forget she exists. So it's this story about like her living her life. Like how do you rent an apartment? How do you buy anything? Because the moment someone looks away and you're walking out the store with these things in your arms, they think you've stolen it because they don't remember you buying it. So it's about her figuring out how to live her life until she meets a boy who does remember her.
Ooh, have you ever heard of Forever by Peter Hamill?
No.
Very similar book. It's another one that made me like cry my eyes out at the end. But his curse, this character's curse is that he can't leave the island of Manhattan.
Oh, interesting.
No, it's super interesting. It starts off.
So he's one of the
like,
Sex and the City women. Is that what you're telling me?
He is. He's a total Miranda though, so it's kind of a twat waffle.
Peter Hamill.
Any other writers or authors that kind of do it to you every time?
Given, and I'm sure you probably read a bunch of his already, but Khaled Hosseini, the Kite Runner, that writer, his stuff
Never touched him.
Oh,
I don't know why.
fantastic.
It's like one of like those gaping holes in my reading that I don't.
Yeah.
I can see the copy on my shelf somewhere right over here.
Yeah.
And I just, for some reason, never picked it up. I don't know why.
Those are tremendous. The Kite Runner is beautiful and sad. Another one that will make you cry.
If you would ever like to know a good get-rich-quick scheme, if you ever come across hardback versions of the book of Kite Runner, or the Kite Runner, I'm sorry, look inside, and if you can find a true first edition in good condition, they're worth a ton of money.
Really?
It's a weird thing. Yeah, I guess just something about the original run of first editions with that. I believe it's the Kite Runner, where they're just worth a fortune.
I will say that all of the ones that I've mentioned so far, they've all been sort of like heart-wrenching and thought-provoking and beautiful, but give me a Stephen King any day. Like, I want Stephen King the day after it's published.
Gospel.
Like,
yep.
I love everything that he writes. Absolutely. And Tana French is another one where the day it comes out, like, I want to read her books. I love her books. And then Mary Roach, that she's nonfiction. She's a science writer, and she hasn't written anything in a while. And I'm like,
no, she hasn't. What was her last book? Corpse? So was Sif the first one? Okay,
Sif was her first book. No. Fuzz was her latest one.
Okay, I thought, Jesus, I'm super backwards on that one. Ooh, I have definitely seen that in the store.
This
actually
is signed.
Ooh, I'm such a sucker for signed copies.
I just love it.
It looks like Bart Simpson's the top of his head.
This is the intersect when nature breaks the law. So it's about like, like bears breaking into trash cans, and it's great.
Have you ever gotten into John Scalzi, if you want a writer to make you have a lot of joy?
Mm-mm.
He's a science fiction writer, and there is no like subversion to John Scalzi. It's straight up like sci-fi, like harder sci-fi, Old Man's War, which he's won several Hugos, or like these ludicrous sci-fi books. How like one was called Red Shirts, where it was the Star Trek was real, and it was the book about the ship, but they discover that they're the Star Trek ship and that they're actually on television.
It sounds like a Black Mirror episode. Wasn't there a Black Mirror episode about that?
He wrote for Black Mirror and Love and Robots on Netflix. He wrote for both of them.
Okay.
He wrote Starter Villain. You've probably seen it in the library. It's with the cat with the suit on the cover. It's hysterical. Pick up one of his books. They're just these stupid. You'll read them in a day, but they're just like these really joyfully silly, wonderful tales.
All right, great. We have Amanda, definitely gone off on a tangent.
No, we do that. That's kind of that's basically what we do.
And didn't you tell me 30 to 45 minutes?
I did. That was a lie. No, Amanda, it has been an absolute joy. Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Any parting words?
No, if you want me to do this again at some point, if we want to have like a whole episode about books, that would be
fuck and yes. We will absolutely have an entire I will come up with a couple of categories, and we will like scroll through like a greatest hits. I will come up with some weird shit. Like my favorite book that I read when I felt ostracized when I was younger. Like we'll go deep. Don't worry.
Interview with a Vampire.
Oh, Jurassic Park.
Oh, I loved Michael Crichton. I went through a Michael Crichton phase.
Michael Crichton. I was like, I feel so smart reading this. I'm going to be a scientist. And my teachers were like, no, you're not. No. Focus on art. Know where your moneymaker is.
Did you see that? Was it Michael Crichton and James Patterson? They just I think it was them. There was some sort of book, that just got published, or both of the authors are dead now.
Well, yes, I know Crichton's dead.
Crichton's dead. It was no.
Which I might have the signs to bring him back if you guys have a second to listen.
If you read enough of his books.
Exactly. He's like, the steps are there, people. So it's the most convoluted Da Vinci Code bullshit ever. 20 years from now, someone's like, we're bringing Crichton back, and Nicolas Cage is like, no, we're not.
I loved the Da Vinci Code. I loved it.
I did
not
when
like
I
the
read
subsequent ones. I thought they were all the same, but the first one, I will admit to you, I loved them.
Okay, I'm going to share one more wild conspiracy theory. I can make a direct line to today's societal problems that goes directly through the fucking book, The Da Vinci Code. It started off with technically it started off with the JFK assassination. Started off with the JFK assassination. People couldn't handle it. They invented conspiracy theories for big events, right? Then, in the 80s, our parents got sold the Time Life books about fucking Sasquatch and UFOs. And remember those on TV? They got sold those. It's made them really pliable to even stupider fucking ideas. So, ipso apso, it's all connected.
Okay.
Think about it.
All right. On that note, I think maybe we should finish.
No. Amanda, you have a wonderful night.
Thank you.
I will flesh out my conspiracy theory more at some point.
All right.
Right.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys.
Have a good night.
Bye.
It's kind of cute now. The school library from when I was a kid, they leave books out for the weekend now in a cart so kids can come and get books over the weekend. That's fantastic. How things have changed, though. My friends and I would have made it a weekend project to draw dicks inside of every one of those books. Just anything we were doing, on hold. Just a dick magic marker contest the entire night. Dicks, dicks, dicks. Done. And back on the shelf. Okay, quick. Here, at the top of the big hill, up there, that's where Memo and I got arrested for the first time when we were kids. I don't think his mom even knows still to this day. Secret.